the long paper we had to read. The Making Differences Matters. Or
a really long paper.
Yeah. So if you guys want to pull that up, yeah, the super long paper.
Yeah.
So we can have a reference to go back to because it's going to be asking questions based off of that paper for most of the questions. Does everyone have the paper up?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah? Okay. So later on in our group discussion, oh wait, Norman, are you recording? What? Norman?
Can't hear him either.
Norman, type it out. Or maybe try a different browser. That's what I had to do.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. I started the recording right after the prayer.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good. Okay, so later on, not right now because it wants me to give you guys a little time to think, but I'm going to be assigning each one of you guys a paradigm, and you're going to explain how effective it is in using the concepts. So we're going to give an example of an organization that shows some aspect of the paradigm I give you. Actually, it says you can choose it, so I'll just let you guys choose what paradigm you want to talk about. Okay, so then you're going to explain whether you think that paradigm is effective for that specific organization that you chose. So just give like a small example or whatever, something that you've seen in your life with the 3 paradigms, with one of the 3 paradigms. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So the first question is, what are the 3 diversity paradigms?
Assimilation, differentiation, and integration.
Yep.
So, and then it wants us to kind of describe them.
With the assimilation one, the way I understood it is just that you just treat everybody the same. Like it doesn't matter what race you are, what gender, and nothing matters. You just treat everybody okay. You're just a person.
Mm-hmm.
Which one did you do, Tanner?
I did assimilation.
Okay. So I can do discrimination and fairness. It's just to help reduce prejudice. It keeps certain members of certain demographic groups out of organizations. Just to create equal rights for everybody.
And then the 3rd one.
Which one's left? Sorry.
And the integration.
So integration is working with the differences people have, working with them to become strength as a team. I guess kind of like what we talked about last week. Everybody has differences, but those differences can become strengths to the company.
Yeah.
I agree.
It's kind of taking the best of both worlds, the best of the assimilation and the best of differentiation.
Because you're still treating people as like you're still. I think it says in there that you're celebrating their differences. So like, okay, we want your differences to show, but we're not going to treat you differently. We'll still treat everybody the same, but use those things as an advantage.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. We're kind of gonna be jumping around. So if everyone can pull up their Melody Hobson Colorblind or Color Brave,
Yeah.
and if you want to just pull up the subtitles and transcript, so that you don't have to like watch the video, you can just read it along.
Oh, whoops.
Okay. Does everyone have that up, or do they know where to find it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's hold up.
Okay. Okay. So I really liked this article or her speech. And one of the questions that we are asked is, what does Melody Hobson mean by color brave? And basically in her article, she says that you have to be willing as teachers and parents and entrepreneurs and scientists, you have to be willing to be have proactive conversations about race with honesty, understanding, courage, not because it's the right thing to do, but because it's the smart thing to do. Because our businesses and our products and our science, our research, all of that will be better with greater diversity. And that's what I think she means by color brave, is just not because it's the right thing to do. Like in our church, we are supposed to accept people and love people no matter where their cultures or backgrounds, how they're raised, but more so because it's the smartest thing to do. It's the business mindset rather than like the Christian mindset, I would say. So let's go around and just give what you think Melody means by color brave.
Well, going along with sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
So I think kind of going along with what Lexi was talking about is that subject matter in the business world can, like she said, can be awkward and uncomfortable. But that was something that Melody was really trying to point out, is that we need to embrace the comfortable. I really like when she was talking about her coach in the swimming, how he made her hold her breath for that whole lap. And it wasn't to do breathing exercise or anything. It was so that she got comfortable with the uncomfortable type of things. And I think that's really like, whether it's with color, race, or any type of, I guess, aspect of your life, try to embrace the uncomfortable, because those are the things that you're always going to need to be around and associate yourself with. And I think that's what she's really trying to emphasize. Just get comfortable with it. Is like, don't be afraid to talk about it.
Right, and I think that's actually what I was going to say too, going along with what Kat said, is it's never going to be a comfortable situation, especially the way media portrays it and the problems that we're seeing today. But if we can embrace it, if we can deal with it, I mean, diversity helps a lot in business. You get different ideas from different people who have different backgrounds. From those different backgrounds really help your business grow.
I do like how she encourages. I think when she says color brave, you know, she's talking about being brave to be able to talk about it openly and honestly and value other people's opinions. I just kind of question, I guess my experience has been when the subject is raised, it's almost like people want this type of discussion as long as it goes along with their line of thinking.
Yeah.
Because I was a little troubled with how she talked about, you know, if you go into a boardroom and there's 14 white men, we don't think that there's something wrong with that, but if we saw 14 black men, we would maybe think that there's something wrong with that. And to me, I don't think that's a good way to look at things. I think we should look at a board not by what color their skin is, but by what they do for that company. I wouldn't have a problem with 14 board members that are black. I wouldn't have a problem with 14 board members that are women. If I was a shareholder, I'd be concerned with the stock price. You know, what kind of dividends are they paying? And to make it a race issue, I think it's wrong. I think there was a black congresswoman that pointed out that the congressional Republican leaders were all white men. And how can those 13 white men represent their constituents who are black, who are women, who are, you know, Filipino? And it's almost like you're saying that if you're of a certain race, you can't imagine or know what other races are thinking or feeling, or what they want out of a government representative or a company board member. And so I think, you know, I just go back to Martin Luther King Jr., who said, you know, he wanted to be judged by the content of his character, not the color of his skin. And when individuals look at a board and determine whether that board is, quote, good or not by how many of what color skin are on that board, I don't think that's fair either.
I think that's a really good comment. And I think it makes you kind of look at the paradigms again. Like, which one are they looking at? I mean, are they really focusing on the differences more than whether, are they just trying to make everybody the same? But also I agree with Norman's, like, which one are you trying to focus more on? Like, are we trying to focus on, okay, these people are different, or they're all the same, they're not the way we want it? Or are we focusing more on, I guess, the more important side of it, like how they're running the business? So I like that comment.
Yeah, when she was talking about ESPN,
Yeah.
and, you know, the executives said, well, do you want us to hire the right person for the job, or do you want us to hire the the minority, the guy was like, yeah, like both, like the minority would automatically be the right person for the job. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I really agree with that. I mean, if there were some way to hire people without knowing what race they were, I think, and you hired the most qualified people, I don't think it really matters what race they are. I mean, if you did that with, say, a professional sports team, and you excluded people, based on their race, whichever race it was, I don't think they do that. I mean, there's sports teams where the majority of the people are black, but that's because the owner of the sports team hired the most qualified people. And I don't mind that, that there's a majority of them that are of a different race. So I don't know. I think the argument for integration, just for integration's sake, I don't think it benefits individuals of minority races or the companies and businesses that really push that to the exclusion of the quality of character or the performance ability. But then I'm old.
Yeah, I thought this was a pretty interesting TED Talk as well. I just was thinking about the ESPN example. I think that they had the right idea. I think, in my opinion, they were coming across as that they were saying that when he said yes, they were meaning the best one, even if it is a minority. That's what I got from it. But yeah, I agree with you that we need to be looking at the people's qualifications and what they can add to the company rather than their race or the color of their skin.
For the next question, it's, do you agree that the workplace needs more people who are color brave? And I just want to read you one thing that Melody Hobson said before you guys can answer. She says yes, obviously, because she's, that was what her talk was about. She says, LinkedIn's annual workplace diversity report is any indication that the needle is moving so slowly that it appears to be broken. Among the company's 6,435 employees, 5% are Latino and 3% are Black, representing only a 1% increase over the previous year. LinkedIn's leadership is 3% Latino and 1% Black. So from what she just said, do you agree with Melody that there needs to be more people in the workforce or the workplace that are color brave? Or do you think she's just being dramatic about the whole color brave thing?
I think that there does need to be more people that need to be color brave. And I think that they're not being like, why aren't they being color brave? Like, is it because they're, I don't know, I'm trying to word how I want to say this, but it's not coming out right. I guess, are those people doing what they need to do to be qualified for the job in the industry?
Yeah.
And so I think that's what it means to be color brave, is for those people to go out of their way and say, yeah, I can take the place of one of these white executives. I am that good. I can go to college. I can get a degree. And I can go through the steps but I don't think that it should be something that is just handed to them because of their skin color or their race.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think anybody should just be handed something. Everything that we have here in life is something that we have to work for. And it's all based off of who's the most qualified. And if you're not the most qualified, there's obviously more for you to do to reach that qualification. Business is going to hire people just because they don't have enough of a certain ethnicity on their workforce. I think it all comes down to who's going to do the best job.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it kind of reminded me of in the reading, it talked about the law company and how they hired the one Latino lady. And it wasn't that she brought the Latino population to their law firm, but she just brought a different way of thinking. And I think that's something that Color Brave, with hiring Color Brave people, not necessarily hiring different colored people, but just hiring somebody who is willing to, I guess, change the way of thinking, change ways. And that's why it was good to have a little bit of diversity in there. It should change the way that they work things. Then on the other side, I also talked about the other company, about access control, who was going to France or England, and they were having people from the United States go over to England, but it really didn't change anything because their way of thinking, they weren't, I guess, trying to figure out, okay, what was actually changing. They were just assuming that because they hired people who were from England, that it would change things automatically. So I think you kind of have to have the balance in there. You can't just go automatically hire somebody. You need to figure out the why behind things.
See, I think those are good points. And I think with the example of LinkedIn, LinkedIn can look at it, maybe if they had more diversity in their leadership and in their workforce, that perspective might translate to where they would be a more attractive platform for minorities as far as employment and networking among other minorities and other companies and just in general. And so you could see that as a good thing for LinkedIn as a company that would increase their value and increase their subscribers and ads so they can run and everything like that. On the other side, if somebody like Melody feels that LinkedIn as a business person networking platform isn't serving the minority communities, the minority businesses, the minority employees that want to take advantage of the things with LinkedIn. In America, we have opportunity, and I'm an entrepreneurship. That's my kind of minor, and so certainly somebody like Melody could start a competing platform that did offer that kind of perspective that was attractive to minorities. And so that's where I think the marketplace is a better arbiter of ideas, qualifications, skills, and economically viable business ventures, rather than, say, government mandating that companies have a certain percentage of minorities. I think what government should do is provide the opportunity for, say, a minority like Melody to have an even playing field with, say, the founders of LinkedIn, so that LinkedIn doesn't have any special advantage as far as putting up a networking platform for business people. Melody would have just as much opportunity to create that type of business and platform and compete for customers and users and that type of thing. So I think it should, that type of integration, like I said, I think the marketplace is a better better way to achieve that diversity versus mandating it from government. Did we lose Lexi?
That kind of looks like it. Looks like hers froze.
Yeah.
It's like I either said something really good or really bad, or everybody's like, "Oh, okay."
I thought my screen was frozen because everybody wasn't saying anything. So.
Well, it's
Yeah,
happening.
that's what I thought too. I was like, oh crap.
I'm like, "Uh-oh, I offended someone." See, just until she comes back, just to kind of continue my thought of as far as the market dictating things versus government dictating things. Yeah, I can certainly see, like in the era of civil rights back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, you know, when they protested at lunch counters and how you know, they had the sit-ins because there were lunch counters for whites only. And you know, a lot of people would say, well, why didn't some black people just start up restaurants and do lunch counters? And I think, you know, back in those days, there were, you know, maybe laws against minorities owning businesses or owning property, or you know, banks wouldn't loan a minority-owned business money to start a business or something like that. So, you know, I can see where those types of institutional or systemic, you know, racism things really didn't give other people equal opportunities. But I think in today's world, I think there are equal opportunities for people. But I do think it takes, you know, some of that that bravery that she talked about to step up and do that.
Yeah, just to kind of add on to that real fast, I had a thought about, I think that the upper levels are pretty color brave, but maybe it needs to stem from like the bottom, like education and just allowing everyone to have the same opportunity.
Perfect. So Melody Hobson says that color blindness is dangerous. She says that in my view, color blindness is very dangerous because it means that we're ignoring the problem. There was a corporate study that said instead of avoiding race, the really smart corporations actually dealt with it head on. They actually recognized that embracing diversity means recognizing all races, including the majority one. And then just the question is, do you believe that color blindness is dangerous?
I think it can't go ignored. Like you can't just push it off to the side. But I think with Norman saying you can't just let it overrule everything. It can't just take over the way that you think and the way that you've been. I don't know. The way you can't let it control everything. You can't let the way your decisions are made be controlled by IK. Do we have enough Latinos in our company? Do we have enough African Americans in our company? That shouldn't be ruling your decision, but at the same time, you can't ignore it. I think businesses definitely need to find the balance in between everything.
Kind of along that lines, I'm kind of wondering what color blindness looks like in the church. I mean, when I go to the temple, everybody's dressed in white, and you know, everybody's there because they they meet the qualifications for a temple recommend, and we're all there for the same purpose. I mean, I wonder if, what she's talking about with color blindness would apply to something like that. And I'm not sure how you would apply that in a business. I mean, wouldn't it be good to have a business where everybody's valued equally, regardless of their skin? So I don't know. I'm not sure what's wrong with color blindness and looking at people's qualities, character, integrity, abilities, experience, because you can certainly get different perspectives. Let's say somebody grew up poor, a white person grew up poor in Alabama and is working with somebody who grew up from a rich family in Oregon. Those two people probably bring just as much diversity and different perspective to the workplace as two people of different races that grew up in similar economic conditions. So I don't know. I don't know. I question what's wrong with color blindness and, looking more at core values like integrity and character.
Well, I think something to go along with that is when I think of color blindness, I mean, it describes in here, it's learned behavior where we pretend that we don't notice race. And I mean, people do it all the time. Is you don't want to notice race because you don't want to come off like you're racist or discriminating against them because you notice that they have an ethnic background of African American or Chinese. I think what it means is to embrace it for the fact that I think really smart businesses do embrace it because people in their company, like the girl who helped out with the soup, was she Hispanic? I think she was Hispanic, right? You nod your head yes if I was, or shake your head no. But she was able to add to the soup because of her background. It's that kind of a thing is they can use their backgrounds, they can use their upbringings to help further the business. And I don't think by paying them no attention to what ethnic or race they are would help them in that situation. That's my 2 cents. So,
Okay. Has everyone had a chance to think about their example of a paradigm in a corporation?
Yeah, I have.
so that we were doing that. Let me.
Okay. Whoever wants to go first can go ahead.
I can go. I don't know if it's a corporation. It's where I work at right now at the school. I work at the BYI Idaho Support Center, and so we take calls for the university. And anyway, I work in hiring there. We work to hire a bunch of people. And I was thinking about differentiation, kind of where we celebrate the differences. I don't think our company is quite yet to the integration part of it, because we don't really seek to, okay, we need to hire this many African Americans, this many Hispanics, but we really like to hire the diversity, just because it offers us, as a call center, it offers us a lot of different options. We can talk to a wider range of people, and we really work with their differences. That, okay, what did you do, or what have your experiences been in the past? Because they all come from different backgrounds and have different thoughts about how call centers should be run or how customer service should be offered. So that's kind of what I was thinking about with mine.
From a corporate standpoint, do you guys think that integration could lead to some type of segregation. Let me give you an example. Let's say your call center that you were talking about would, let's say somebody calls in for help on their computer, and in the spirit of integration, you're thinking, okay, well, we have a call center employee of that particular ethnicity of the person calling in, so let's have that person help them with their technical problem because they may be able to relate better. There may be some, kind of language type idiosyncrasies that they may be able to communicate better. Do you think that integration would then lead to segregating duties and having people of minorities working with people of minorities, and would that be felt by the minority employees as patronizing or demeaning?
No, definitely. I think that's something that we definitely have to be careful of, because if you're saying, like, if we have somebody who's from Brazil, we get this a lot, like where Brazilians will call in and they only speak Portuguese, very limited English. And so we're like, hey, does anyone speak Portuguese? And I think that definitely needs to be careful on our end, because I think it's exactly what Norman was saying. It can very quickly turn into discrimination. It's like, okay, you're from Brazil. Okay, we're going to have you take all the Brazil phone calls. Like, that's all you're going to do. So I think you could end up, I think us as management, we could get in trouble with that, saying, okay, this is all that you're going to do, and just put just those responsibilities on them.
Well, and I think
I mean,
how you
yeah, go
use
for
it too, though. Like if you say it's because you're from Brazil and it's because you're South American or Latino, that's why you're going to do this. If you phrase it in the sense that, hey, we like that you have this special ability of being able to speak this language, so we'd like you to be placed on these calls because you have this talent of being able to speak in the language. I think it's kind of how you come off, but
it.
that could
I
also
agree.
go back to the colorblind, color brave thing as well.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, these are all really good points, because I have a friend who speaks Spanish and he works at Melaleuca in Rexburg, and he says that he sits in there. I guess there's a section where Spanish speaking people that answer phone calls, and I think it's your mindset too. He told me, he's like, oh, do you feel kind of like segregated if they like put all the Spanish speaking callers together and then all the English speaking people together? He's like, no, because I refuse to be offended. Like, I refuse to let anything like that, any kind of discrimination, offend me personally. And he says, I even feel like I'm cool because I know a second language, and so I have this talent that no one else has. So I think it's kind of the mindset too. But you definitely have to be careful and walk that thin line, because you don't want to get in trouble for segregation or discrimination. Okay, can you guys pull up I think it's Bednar? Yeah, I think it's Bednar's talk. Or Ballard.
Okay, I got it up.
Okay.
I got it.
Perfect. Okay. So, his talk on counseling with councils has a lot to do with diversity in the workplace. He says, we come from different backgrounds and we bring to the council of the 12 apostles a diverse assortment of experiences in the church and in the world. In our meetings, we do not just sit around and wait for President Howard W. Hunter to tell us what to do. We counsel openly with each other. We listen to each other with profound respect for the abilities and experiences our brethren bring to the council. We discuss a wide variety of issues from church administration to world events, and we do so frankly and openly. Sometimes we discuss issues for weeks before reaching a decision. We do not always agree during our discussions, but when decision is made, we are both united and determined. So that was a quote that I really liked. So I think we'll ask, there's a few questions, but I don't think we have time for all of them. I mean, we're all in different wards right now. So have you guys seen a bishop use diversity with his counselors to help the ward in any ways?
I have not.
Well, I have, and it's in our ward. It's mainly including the sisters in decisions. One of the things that Elder Ballard doesn't really mention, because he's talking about the Council of the 12 Apostles, is when we had a priesthood leadership conference with Elder Oaks about 2 months ago. He talked about this, about counseling in councils and the importance of including the women's auxiliary presidencies in that counseling. And I know that the Council of the 12 counsels extensively with the General Relief Society presidency and the board, the Young Women's General Presidency, and the Primary General Presidency, because they recognize that in the Council of the 12 Apostles, they don't have the diversity of perspective of the sisters in the church. And so they kind of lead by example by counseling with the sisters in leadership, and they want the wards and the ward councils to do the same because of the perspective. And one of the things that we talked about in ward council recently was how the church is focusing on increased Sabbath day observance. And if the brethren of the priesthood and the priesthood quorums just kind of focus on increasing Sabbath observance at church and not necessarily at home or with their families, he said, one of the examples Elder Oaks said was, if you talk to the sisters about increasing Sabbath day observance, their idea is, okay, husband, why don't you get the kids ready and I'll pull the car out and honk when it's time to go to church. And he said, you know, getting that perspective from the sisters as to what will help them feel like the Sabbath is a day of rest and is an enjoyment, is to have the brethren take a more active role in getting children ready for church. And that will help the sisters be able to prepare spiritually and have the Sabbath be a delight. Because he said in the church many times the Sabbath is not a delight for mothers with small children. So just that, I think it's just diversity is bringing those perspectives and helping others that don't have those perspectives gain those perspectives.
Yeah, so let's do one last question. How could you, what approach would you take to diversify as the manager? So let's just imagine that you guys had your own business or corporation or whatever. What would you do to make a difference and to diversify as being an owner, a manager, business owner, whatever?
The thing I was thinking about, I guess, through the whole thing, and that I wanted to work on, is what Norman just talked about, is using the diversity to kind of change just different perspective on things, get different types of inputs, so that way you don't have just one lane of thinking. You're getting so many different opinions, lots of different thoughts, and then use that to make a company better. Not so much like, okay, you need to hire these types of people, but just get thoughts from all kinds of different people to make a company better.
I would agree with that too. Based on what your company is or what your business is, whoever your target audience is, say you target a specific race, I think it'd be important to have people in your company who can relate to them, to the culture that might be surrounding that target audience. So in that aspect, I could see it as something you'd want to do.
Yeah, I agree with both of your comments. Just being able to capitalize on people's strengths. If someone has a strength that they have received from their culture, not to try to depress it, but to let them use that strength to help your company.
Perfect. Yeah, I think if I was a manager, I think a lot of times in the work environment, you don't really get everyone's skills, or just while you're in the workforce. I think you got to get to know them a little better than just on a work basis. And I think if you get to know them outside of work, you will realize all the different skills and aspects and talents that they have that they could bring to the table that you've never realized. And so I think as a manager, I would really try to befriend the people underneath me, because I remember when I was a manager back at home, that was how I got to know all of the people that worked underneath me. And from there, we can capitalize on all of their gifts and strengths and skills that I would have never even noticed if I had not talked to them or hung out with them after work or before work. Okay. Do we have to go for an hour, or should we talk about the doohickey? Does anyone know?
I think we should.
Recording about it.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say we could probably stop the recording. I bet we don't have to record it, but we should definitely talk about it.
Okay.
I'll keep it recording just in case we have a question about it. They did talk about it in the live hangout with the instructor. One of the things that okay, so we are going to have, I asked a couple of questions because I wasn't sure. We are going to have the same team for the whole semester. So I think there's 3 doohickey sections, assignments. And it is the same content for the whole semester. So one of the things we want to do is just focus on the 3 questions for each paper, because if you kind of grab something out of sequence, then you're not going to have anything to write about maybe on the next paper. He says he's really looking for clarity. He wants us to identify a clear problem, a clear solution, and then a clear implementation of the solution. He said communication is really key with the groups, making sure everybody knows who's going to do what. So I think that's probably what we should do right now, is really kind of clarify who's going to do what, because I think we talked about it last week, but I'm not particularly clear on what I'm supposed to do. I know Zeb put in some really good information on the doc, but if anybody remembers what we kind of agreed to do, or who was going to do what, that'd be helpful to me.
Well, I think there's 5 of us, so someone was going to take an introduction, the 3 problems. So each person, or everybody, so one person introduction, and then 3 people for 1 per problem, and then the last one for a conclusion. If that's not what we should do, what are the other ideas?
No, I think that's a good way to split it up. Plus, also we're talking about making sure that we only grab content from what we're discussing right now. And the problem one is we came up with sexual harassment, and we've been talking about that. That was in the reading about the employment of I guess our first reading that we're supposed to do for the week. And then also we have discrimination, which we've also been talking about. And then mistreatment of lower level employees. We've kind of talked about that, like not managing them, or kind of discriminating against them. So 2 and 3 kind of tie together.
He also said to make sure, like if the third question deals with the information in the third week of that section, he said wait until you read and talk together as a group about that topic and then work on that section. He said you really shouldn't try to work on the third section the very first week of that doohickey report.
Okay. So do we want to decide what we want to take, or?
I think I have the document pulled up, so it has the sections. So it looks like Zeb picked out sexual harassment, so I think you could do that.
Okay.
Does somebody want to tackle discrimination?
I can do that one.
Okay, so that's, I'm just going to type in here. Or were you typing in there?
I can put my name next to it.
Okay, there you go.
That way I remember.
All right, how about mistreatment of lower level employees?
I'm good with whatever. I can do that one.
Okay.
And with Zeb, it looks like next week we're going to be talking about sexual harassment a lot. Like that's a huge part of our reading.
That's perfect. This week I'm super packed, so next week I wasn't going to be able to work on it until then anyway. So
There you go.
but next week is week 5, right?
Yeah.
So it's due next week.
Is it due on Saturday? Or on Friday, or?
It's not due, I think it's Monday the 22nd is when it's actually due.
Okay, so the following Monday after that?
Yeah. I'll do the editing and either the conclusion or the introduction.
Yeah, I don't care. Either one works for me.
All right, so I'll do the conclusion and the editing.
Okay.
And then Jeremy, you can throw your thoughts wherever with the
Okay.
intro.
And Lexi was going to do mistreatment of lower level employees.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is all this, Zeb? All of your thoughts? What's the red?
So I have those questions. That's information that I wrote up, and I just put it up there for everybody to see. Because he has all those topics that he wants you to talk about, and it's what I wrote up is kind of like an outline for what we're doing. I just put what information I found or my thoughts into that.
Oh, so you basically did it all.
Kind of, but it has to be like
A lot longer.
It needs to be more, it needs to be specific, and it needs to be clear. So,
Right.
and also using some outside sources. I think in the next week we should all read the rubric so we're real familiar with what they're expecting.
Okay.
And you should probably, I would just say if the minimum is 3,500 words, I think each section should probably be about 900 words, because I don't think the introduction and the conclusion really need to be that much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
Who's going to be our discussion leader next week?
I've got a lot going on this weekend, so
I can do it.
I'll do it the week after.
I can do it next week. Oh,
Awesome. Is
Who's
that everything?
doing it?
I think so.
Okay.
Who's the discussion leader for next week, Tanner?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay. All right, I will stop the recording. We'll post it, and you guys have a great week.